War is an algorithm. We will show its price. North Korea spends between 20 and 30% of its GDP on military expenditures every year for 3 generations. This is not preparation for war. This is war against its own future. The numbers tell a story no propaganda can hide. In 1950, North and South Korea had roughly equivalent economies. Today, South Korea's GDP stands at $1.7 trillion. North Korea's approximately $40 billion. The South Korean economy is 50 times larger. The average South Korean earns $35,000 annually. The average North Korean won $300. This is not ideology. This is compound interest working in reverse. Between $10 and $11 billion per year. That is what the Democratic People's Republic of Korea dedicates to maintaining an army of 1.3 million active personnel plus 7.7 million reservists. For a population of 26 million, this means 1 in 3 adults is either in uniform or on standby. The economic designation for this is total mobilization. The practical designation is simpler: demographic suicide. The cost of eternal readiness. They said, military strength ensures security and prosperity. They got the world's most expensive permanent standby mode. Consider the mathematics of maintaining 1.3 million soldiers in a country with a workforce of approximately 15 million people. Nearly 9% of all working-age adults are removed from productive economic activity and reassigned to military service. They do not manufacture goods. They do not grow food beyond subsistence farming on military bases. They do not innovate. They do not build infrastructure. They stand ready. The Stockholm International Peace Research Institute estimates North Korea's military burden, military spending as a share of GDP, at somewhere between 24 and 30%. For comparison, Russia, during its war in Ukraine, allocates approximately 7%. The United States, the world's largest military spender in absolute terms, allocates 3.5%. Israel, in a permanent state of high military alert, allocates roughly 5%. North Korea has maintained a military burden 6 to 8 times higher than active war participants for 80 years. What does this buy? Not victory, not expansion, maintenance. The cost of being ready for a war that never comes is extracted daily from every other sector of society. Each billion spent on the military is 1 billion not spent on electrification, transportation, health, education, or industrial modernization. The Rand Corporation calculated that North Korea's nuclear weapons program alone consumed between $3.2 and $10 billion from its inception through 2020. In a $40 billion economy, this represents up to 25% of 1 year's total economic output, invested not in productive capacity, but in weapons that cannot be used without guaranteeing national annihilation. The famine equation. Between 1994 and 1998, North Korea experienced what it officially termed the arduous march. Academic estimates place deaths between 600,000 and 1 million people. Approximately 3 to 5% of the entire population starved to death. The famine was not a natural disaster. It was a budget allocation problem. During these same years, North Korea continued military spending estimated at $5 to $6 billion annually. The Korean People's Army maintained its personnel numbers. Weapons development continued. The mathematics are straightforward. Redirecting even 30% of military expenditures to food imports could have purchased approximately 3 million metric tons of grain annually, enough to prevent mass starvation. They chose the army over the population. This was not cruelty. It was a calculation. The regime understood that losing military capacity meant losing power. Losing population meant only losing workers. In economic terms, they performed a cost-benefit analysis and determined that mass civilian death was the cheaper option compared to military reduction. The long-term cost compounds. The generation born during and after the famine shows permanent physical stunting. According to data from defector medical examinations and South Korean military measurements, the average North Korean male now stands approximately 3 to 6 centimeters shorter than his South Korean counterpart. For women, the gap is 2 to 4 centimeters. This is not genetics. This is malnutrition calculated in bone development. Height correlates with cognitive development, work capacity, and lifetime earnings. North Korea did not just lose 600,000 to 1 million people. It permanently reduced the productive capacity of everyone born between 1990 and 2000. The economic designation for this is human capital destruction. The practical designation: they traded future productivity for current military maintenance. The isolation premium. Economic isolation is not free. It is a tax levied on every transaction, every innovation, every efficiency gain that might have occurred with open borders and trade. North Korea's GDP per capita in 1950 was roughly equivalent to South Korea's. By 1970, South Korea had pulled ahead. By 1990, the gap was substantial. By 2025, it is unbridgeable through conventional development. What happened? South Korea integrated into global markets. It imported technology, exported manufactured goods, attracted foreign investment, and allowed its economy to specialize based on comparative advantage. North Korea chose autarky, economic self-sufficiency enforced by military priority and ideological isolation. The cost of autarky can be calculated by comparing actual development with potential development. If North Korea had followed a growth trajectory similar to South Korea's, adjusting for size, resources, and starting conditions, its economy today might reasonably be 1/10 to 1/5 of South Korea's rather than 1/50th. This suggests a cumulative opportunity cost of approximately $250 to $400 billion over 70 years. This is not money lost to war. This is money never earned because military priority demanded isolation, and isolation demanded inefficiency, and inefficiency demanded poverty, and poverty demanded further military control to prevent collapse. Sanctions amplify this cost, but sanctions alone do not explain it. Myanmar faces sanctions. Iran faces sanctions. Cuba has faced sanctions for 6 decades. None maintain North Korea's level of military spending relative to GDP. The sanctions are a response to military policy, not its cause. The technology gap as accumulating debt. Every year North Korea does not integrate modern technology is a year of falling further behind the efficiency frontier. This is not abstract. It is measurable in energy production, industrial output, and agricultural yield. North Korea's electricity generation capacity is estimated at approximately 7 to 8 gigawatts. South Korea's 140 gigawatts. Per capita, South Koreans have access to 18 times more electrical power. Manufacturing requires electricity. Computing requires electricity. Modern agriculture requires electricity. Medical equipment requires electricity. The military consumes a disproportionate share of available power. Army bases, weapons facilities, and command centers receive priority allocation. According to defector testimony and satellite analysis, Pyongyang, the capital housing military and party elite, consumes roughly 30% of the nation's total electricity, despite representing less than 15% of the population. This creates a dual economy. The military operates in relative modernity. The civilian sector operates in permanent scarcity. Every kilowatt-hour directed to military readiness is one not available for industrial production or civilian use. The compounding effect emerges in technological obsolescence. North Korean factories operate equipment from the 1970s and 1980s. This is not charming, it is expensive. Outdated machinery consumes more energy, produces lower quality output, requires more maintenance, and generates more waste than modern equivalents. South Korean manufacturing achieved productivity gains of 400 to 500% between 1990 and 2020 through technological upgrading. North Korean manufacturing, locked into obsolete capital stock by lack of investment, achieved perhaps 20 to 30% gains. The productivity gap widens annually. This is how permanent military priority becomes permanent poverty. The nuclear pit. North Korea's nuclear weapons program represents the purest expression of military spending as self-justifying system. The program exists to guarantee regime survival. The program costs so much that it threatens economic collapse. The threat of collapse justifies even tighter control. Tighter control requires more military spending. The loop closes. Estimates for total nuclear program costs through 2020 range from $3.2 billion to $10 billion. These figures include uranium enrichment facilities, plutonium reprocessing, missile development, testing, and delivery systems. For perspective, $10 billion is equivalent to 25% of North Korea's current GDP. Spent over 30 years, this averages $300 million to $330 million annually. What could that buy instead? The World Bank estimates that rural electrification in developing economies costs approximately $500 to $1,500 per household. North Korea has roughly 6 million households. Full rural electrification, $3 to $9 billion total. The nuclear program could have electrified the entire country. Or consider food security. At $300 per metric ton for imported grain, $300 million buys 1 million metric tons annually. North Korea's grain shortfall in bad years is estimated at $500,000 to 1 million metric tons. The annual nuclear weapons budget could have eliminated chronic food insecurity. They chose the bomb. This was rational from the regime's perspective. Economic development strengthens the population. The bomb strengthens the regime. The bomb is certain. Development is risky. So they paid in starvation, darkness, and isolation for a weapon they can never use. The demographic death spiral. Military economics and demographics create a feedback loop. High military spending requires young male conscripts. Conscription removes them from the labor force and delays family formation. Delayed families mean fewer births. Fewer births mean a shrinking workforce. A shrinking workforce cannot sustain the economy. A failing economy cannot sustain the military. The military expands to suppress discontent. The spiral tightens. North Korean total fertility rate is estimated at 1.8 to 1.9 children per woman. This is below replacement level of 2.1. The population is projected to decline after 2030. Meanwhile, military service requirements remain constant. The economic impact materializes in dependency ratios. North Korea maintains 1.3 million active soldiers plus 7.7 million reservists. These 9 million people in military roles represent 35% of the total population and approximately 60% of working-age males. The productive economy must support both these military personnel and the civilian population. In South Korea, approximately 92% of working-age adults participate in productive economic activity when not in temporary military service. In North Korea, the figure is closer to 60% when accounting for military, political, and security assignments. This is a 35% productivity penalty applied to the entire economy. Every year this continues, the gap between North and South widens, not linearly, exponentially, because the South invests in technology and education and infrastructure that increase future productivity. The North invests in readiness that consumes resources without creating capacity. The cost they will never recover. Some costs can be repaid, infrastructure can be rebuilt, technology can be imported, trade relationships can be restored. Some costs compound forever. 3 generations of North Koreans have now grown up in the military economy. The eldest, those who remember the relative prosperity of the 1970s, are dying. The middle generation knows only scarcity and control. The youngest generation has never seen an alternative. This is not just economic loss. It is institutional knowledge destruction. North Korea has no class of entrepreneurs who understand market dynamics. It has no cadre of engineers trained in modern manufacturing techniques. It has no financial sector capable of allocating capital efficiently. It has no legal system designed for contract enforcement in complex economic transactions. These institutions cannot be purchased. They must be built over decades through trial, error, and gradual improvement. Every year of military priority is a year these institutions do not develop. The cost is not the money spent. The cost is the expertise never gained. South Korea built Samsung, LG, Hyundai, and SK Group, 4 conglomerates in the global top 100 by revenue. These companies emerged from decades of export-oriented industrialization, technology transfer, and market competition. North Korea built missiles. Missiles do not generate recurring revenue. Missiles do not train engineers in process optimization. Missiles do not create supply chains that diffuse knowledge throughout an economy. The Rand Corporation estimates that if North Korea abandoned its nuclear program and normalized economically, it could achieve GDP growth rates of 6 to 8% annually for a decade. Compounded over 10 years, this would increase total GDP to $70 to $85 billion over 20 years, $120 to $180 billion. Over 30 years, approaching South Korean levels relative to population. They will not do this, because abandoning the military economy means abandoning the control structure that keeps the regime in power. The cost of change exceeds the cost of stagnation for those making the decision. So the machine continues. The permanent war premium. What is the true cost of North Korea's military economy? Not the $10 billion spent annually, not even the hundreds of billions in cumulative opportunity cost since 1950. The true cost is irreversibility. 80 years of military priority has created an economy that cannot function without military priority. The military is the organizational structure. The military controls distribution. The military operates the best farmland. The military runs key industries. The military is the economy. Demilitarization would mean economic reorganization on a scale that threatens everyone currently holding power. So it will not happen voluntarily. The system is locked in. South Korea spent 70 years becoming rich. North Korea spent 70 years becoming ready. Readiness bought survival for the regime. It bought poverty for everyone else. And poverty bought another generation of readiness. This is the algorithm. This is the price. Every artillery piece pointed south is a factory not built. Every missile test is a harvest not planted. Every submarine is 1,000 homes without electricity. The calculations are simple. The consequences are permanent. They chose the gun. They paid with the future. Subscribe to What War Costs. We count what others ignore.